Hi everyone, my name is Julian Miller, and in this video we're going to cover an important programming topic called abstraction. You'll be pleased to know that successfully making use of abstraction has the potential to save you from hours of repetitive work. And the idea of abstraction is essentially to take a higher level look at the task at hand. For example, consider cars and trucks. They're different, but they're both vehicles. So you could say that a vehicle is a higher level description or an abstraction of a car or a truck. Now consider a dog. If we take a step back, we could say that our dog is an animal. However, this might be a little too abstract for our purposes, so we're going to use a slightly lower level of abstraction, a pet. So you'll see that I essentially have what we left off with in the previous video, except I've added a pet.cpp and a pet.h file. And this is where we're going to implement our pet class. And naturally, our pet class is going to have a very similar structure to our dog because, well, our dog is a lower level description of a pet. Or in other words, a pet is an abstraction of a dog. So what I'm going to do is to save us some time, I'm going to copy and paste the dog right in here. And I'm just going to rename this pet. We have to change our constructor. And I'm going to get rid of this bark method for now. So there is our pet. And we can go ahead and complete the implementation of our pet class. It's fairly similar to the way that we did our dog. We don't have a bark method, so I'm just going to copy and paste this top part. Go in here. And we can't forget to include our pet header file. And we have to rename the constructor and specify the proper scope. So, there we go, we have a pet class. And what exactly do we do with this now? Well, we could use it just like we use the dog class right now, but that doesn't really make our job any easier than before. Like I mentioned earlier though, a dog is just a specific type of pet. Naturally, you could say that a dog inherits the attributes of a pet, and this is arguably the most important aspect of object-oriented programming, inheritance. Now, because we've already written this code here in our pet class, and we've defined a lot of this in our pet class, what we can do is we can just inherit that from our pet class. So I'm going to go ahead and delete some of the implementation here for our dog's constructor, and I'm going to delete a lot of our dog's definition here. And the reason I'm doing this is because this stuff is already defined here in our pet class, so there's no use defining it a second time. Now, if we want to inherit these attributes and methods, it's really simple. What we do is we just use a colon, which is basically saying that we're extending or we are inheriting the pet class. And we can't forget to include our pet's header file. So again, this is how we inherit another class. We use the colon to specify that we're inheriting a pet, and I'll talk about this public in a later video, but just use that for now. And in order for this to work, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to pass some values from our dog's constructor into our pet's constructor, because this is the function we want to call. And in order to do that, we use the colon once again, and we simply call the pet's constructor with these values that were passed in to our dog's constructor. And you'll notice that if we try running this, we get an error. And I guess the error says that we can't access a private member declared in class pet, which is the age. You'll notice that it's private, and we learned in the previous video that anything that's private can only be accessed from within this class. So if we're trying to access the age from the dog's class, that brings up some issues. And to get around this, what we do is we change this access modifier to something else called protected. And I suppose you now know that there are 3 different types of access modifiers, one being public, another is private, and the third is protected. And protected is essentially the exact same thing as private, except this will allow any classes that inherit the pet class to access this directly. You'll notice that we still wouldn't be able to access this age from outside of any of the inherited classes, say the main function. And we'll go ahead and try running this again. And it works. Just like it did before, which is perfect. So again, what we did there was we added this protected keyword so that our dog could access the age directly. Now that we have a base pet class, it becomes really easy to add additional pets. For example, if we wanted to add a cat class and a mouse class, all we have to do is extend our pet class. Without inheritance, if we wanted to do this, we'd have to rewrite many of the functions and methods that we've already implemented. So I'm going to show you this in action by adding a mouse and a cat class. I'll start off by adding a cat.cpp, and I'll add a mouse.cpp, and I'll add their respective header files, cat.h, and mouse.h. Alright, so because our cat and mouse are going to be very similar to our dog in that they're both pets, I'm going to use the dog as a template and simply copy and paste this into our mouse and cat header files. So I'm just copying the dog header information into our mouse, and I'll rename the class mouse. It still extends the pet class, and we also need to rename our constructor, and we'll change our bark method to something a little more appropriate, squeak. Likewise, we'll go into the cat header file and we'll paste the dog. We'll change the class name to cat. We'll change the constructor to cat, and we'll make the cat meow. So now that we have the headers done, we have to complete our implementation. And basically what happens when we're extending this pet is that we're gaining access to the pet constructor, the have birthday, get age, and our mouse and cat and dog are all inheriting the name and the age members. So all we have to do is we need to specify our constructor and our bark, or in the case of a mouse we'll be implementing a squeak, and in the case of the cat we'll be implementing a meow method. So I'm going to start off with the mouse in mouse.cpp, and we have to include our mouse header file, and I went here and copied the dog once again because I'm using it as a template for our other pets. And I'm just going to paste this in here and rename the scope to mouse and the constructor to mouse, and we'll change the scope of our squeak method now, and we'll just change a bit of the string that it outputs. Likewise, I'll do the same in the cat implementation file. I will paste in our dog information, and I'll include our cat's header file. And just like I did in the mouse implementation, I just have to rename a few things. And I'll change the string to meow, my name is, and then it'll output the name, and it'll output the cat's age. So if we go to our main function now, we should be able to use these just like we use the dog. First we have to go ahead and include our mouse header file and our cat header file. This is where the actual definitions of the classes are. And we declare them in a very similar manner. Cat. We'll name the cat Felix, and he'll be 5 years old. And as I mentioned before, when we pass these values in, they're going to the cat's constructor, and from the cat's constructor we're passing it into the pet constructor, which essentially builds the cat. And we can do the same with the mouse. We'll name him Jerry, and he'll be 1 year old. And we can do the same thing. We'll go C meow, and we'll make our mouse squeak. And I'll get rid of this last line here just for now. So if we run this, we should get an error. And we do get an error. And the reason for that is that we're redefining our pet class. You might be saying, well, no we're not, where are we doing that? Well, every time we include one of these header files, we're also including the pet header file. So we're essentially trying to define our pet multiple times. Every time that we include one of our pet's header files, we're including this pet header, and it's trying to get redefined. So we end up with this error of a redefinition. And to get around that, we only want to include our pet header file once. And to do this, we use something called header guards, or include guards. And it's very simple to do this. We use a preprocessor macro called ifdefs. So what we're going to say is, if not defined pet underscore h, then we're going to define pet underscore h, and we're going to include the rest of our pet header file, and we'll end the if statement. So again, what this is saying is that if we haven't already included our pet header file, then we're going to define our pet header file. So this means that we're only going to be including it once. And you'll see now that if we run it, we don't have any errors. And you can see that our dog was successfully created along with our cat and our mouse. And that about sums up the topic of abstraction and inheritance. Thanks for watching.